Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we are taking a look at an awesome, extremely rare 45 caliber Walther. Well, it's a Walther MP according to the slide. This is basically a Walther AP pattern gun. It is the predecessor to the P38. And the main obvious distinction here, aside from being a 45 caliber, is that it's hammerless. It's actually got a shrouded hammer on the back of the slide. Now, you've probably seen the videos I have done on John Martz's 45 caliber Walther P38 recreations. Well, there was actually a real historical basis for those guns, and it's right here. There are at most a couple of these guns made, certainly not more than 5 of those. I know of 2 that still exist today, and this is one of them. So the deal here, and by the way, this is the 9mm version of basically the same thing. The deal is, in 1935, the German military put out a request for a new 9mm pistol to replace the Luger, because the Luger was too expensive. And a number of companies responded: BSW, Mauser, and Walther. And Walther provided basically this gun. They made 50 of them for the German military to take a look at. The first 10 had long barrels and shoulder stocks. I did a video as well on the development of the P38 that covers a bunch of these. The other 40 were standard configuration guns like this, some with steel frames, some with alloy frames. And while Walther was doing that, they were hedging their bets. So they didn't know for sure that they were going to win this contract for the German military. Obviously, if they did, big windfall, very successful, it's great. But what if they don't? What if Mauser or BSW wins that contract? Well, they put a lot of development work into this new design of pistol, and it would make sense for them to try and market it elsewhere. This is late 1930s, so there's a lot of war tension around, but there's not actually a war going on yet. Unless you count China and Japan, which we're not going to for these purposes. So Walther, and by the way, Walther was successful in getting some other sales. They did sell the Walther HP, aka the P38, to Sweden, for example, in this brief window before World War II broke out. And they also figured, well, we might be able to interest the United States military in this as well. So they built a couple of these guns in 45 ACP. And that's just super cool. So let's take a look at exactly what differs between this and, well, the 9mm early version and the P38 itself. We can pretty well date the 45 by features. So on the prototype APs, the first guns, the first 50 that were made, they actually have this widened section on the frame. This is one of the 9mm ones. In fact, this is number 20 of the 9mm guns. This they would get rid of per German Army preferences. And here on the 45, we don't have that widened section. This is just a smooth-sided frame. It does still have the internal extractor, as do all of these guys. So that internal extractor right there. And of course, it's early enough that it still has a shrouded hammer. If we look at the markings up nice and close, you'll see that it's actually marked Cal 45, as opposed to the European measurement, Cal 11.25mm. This is a further indication that this was in fact intended for the US audience or the US market. Other than that, we have pretty typical markings: Waffenfabrik Walther, Zella-Mellis, the Walther banner there, Walther patent, and model MP on this. Serial number is 1006. The other known example of a 45 like this is serial number 1005. And there is a documented MP, actually, in Ed Zell's Handguns of the World, serial number 1004. So if they made more than 2 of the 45s, they were almost certainly in a serial range higher than this. Might have been as much as like number 5 through number 10, but not more than that. As with the ultimate official P38 production, this is double action, but of course it has the shrouded hammer back here, hidden under the slide there. Magazine capacity is 7 rounds, and this, of course, is a rather larger magazine than its 9mm brethren there. So wider, taller, all around larger, because bigger cartridge. Despite having a larger cartridge, larger grip, and larger everything, it's actually still a remarkably comfortable pistol in the hand. It's definitely bigger, it's a little more top-heavy, but not uncomfortable to hold. This probably would have been a fairly nice shooting gun for a 45. Just one other neat feature here that isn't really specific to this pistol, but it's cool to find one with such pristine original finish that this is actually visible. There's a line right here, and it goes all the way up around the top of the slide and down on this side as well. You kind of have to get the light right to see it. There you go, you can see it there. That is actually a heat treat line. So what I believe they did is harden the front end of the slide, but there was no need to harden the back end. And as a result, you get that differential line. That's one of the sort of things that you can see on an original finish. Typically when a gun gets re-blued, that sort of thing is lost. And it's just a neat little artifact of the manufacturing process. Obviously, of course, World War II broke out. Walther almost certainly never actually sent these guns to the United States. There isn't any record that I've been able to find of them being tested by the US. And frankly, this and the other one are both in really nice condition, far too nice to have actually been trials guns. What almost certainly happened is between when they started making these and when they would have shipped them to the US, the German government came back very interested, and Walther decided to focus on finishing off this German contract, making the changes that the German military wanted, namely the exposed hammer, as well as some other smaller details. And so these just sat in the factory, and it was there that they were eventually captured as war trophies at the end of World War II and brought back to the US. With the Walther APs, like this guy in 9mm, the survival rate is really quite good, and a lot of the guns are in really nice condition. Too nice for them to have all been trials guns that came over to the US. Instead, these are primarily guns that were taken as trophies at the end of the war when the Allied powers occupied the Walther factory. So, extremely cool to get a chance to take a look at a legitimate, real 45 caliber Walther. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Big thanks to the private collector who gave me a chance to film this for you. Thanks for watching.